How's it going, everyone? How you doing? Welcome back to the Elite Battle League channel. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we have our semi-final roundup. This is going to be an interesting one, to say the least. We have our two finalists. Secured for season 4. Two teams are in the finals, in the championship match. We finally are at this point. Exciting times in Elite Battle League. We're finally at this point of the season where we can see who is going to be not new, because neither of them are new champions, I guess, but who is going to be the reigning champ for season 5. So exciting times. The two matches, one was pretty cut and dry, a standard demolition job, sorry doorman, and the other one was a lot more tactical, a lot more just back and forth. There's a lot more thought. It was more of a chess match, and it ultimately came down to a crit that would have mattered for the losing team. Now I'll go over that later, because I did run some calculations and stuff with our good friend Lionheart Plays, who was a part of the match. We ran some calcs to find out if the outcome would have been different, and you'd be surprised. So we'll touch on that later, but before we do all that, check out all the coaches down below. If you want to see a championship match this Saturday, if you want to see a championship match, you want to check out PokePidge, and you want to check out Lionheart Plays specifically, that is where the match will be located. You get watch both perspectives. I'm sure it's going to be a very good tactical battle between those two, because they're both amazing battlers and they absolutely deserve to be in the finals. So those are the two channels specifically that will have the finals, but you should also check out the rest of the coaches down below, because they're all fantastic content creators and amazing people above all else. Also, subscribe to the Elite Battle League channel if you haven't already. Make that subscribe button gray. I think it turns gray when you click subscribe, so click it so you do not miss the weekly roundups, and then eventually when they come back, the power rankings, top 5 fails, top 5 plays, all of that good stuff, and maybe some other content we'll do in the offseason. I don't know, we haven't really talked about it, but for now you're at least guaranteed that stuff, and it's all amazing content. Now, with all that being said, let's get into it. First up, we have the Florida Alligators versus the Detroit Luxrays. The Florida Alligators walked away with a 6-4 win. That is a debatable score apparently, but I'm calling it a 6-4 win. I will explain in a second. The Florida Alligators secured their spot through it's crazy. They're the first team to one of the first two teams to win a play-in match, and they're the first team officially to have made it all the way to the playoffs. I think it might be the first lowest seed to ever make it to the finals. Correct me on that, Matt. I'm actually very curious about that. They might be the first team ever, the first lowest seed ever to make it all the way to the finals. I'm actually very curious about that. Probably not, but well, you got to think it was GG and then Pidge. Actually, I think it might be right on that. That's pretty cool. But it's Lionheart, so obviously low seed doesn't really matter. But yes, this was an intense back and forth battle. I think Lionheart had a good start to the match, a way to try and throw off Detroit, starting with Togekiss, bringing Safeguard, Flamethrower, Yawn. Now, the two of us had kind of prepped for this match back when they were supposed to face in week 5. We figured out a couple problems. Unfortunately, I couldn't help them too much with this match, but obviously it didn't really matter all that much. But yes, the set on Togekiss was great. Like I said, Safeguard, Flamethrower, Yawn, great for momentum, great to make sure his Pokemon weren't getting status, and then Flamethrower right in front of the Scizor was amazing. That was a great start for Lionheart. There was quite a bit of back and forth in terms of setups. They were kind of going back and forth with setups, and the early match was real. It's kind of a switch fest, so we're kind of trying to feel each other out for a second there, trying to kind of go around and just feel out when they can get an opportunity to strike. The first team to actually strike was Detroit, as Zapdos took down Togekiss. But then Florida returned by killing Scizor. So they did go back and forth. Lionheart, this is an interesting play, and some people might be questioning it, I'm not really sure, but Lionheart Dynamax's Lugia when it was on very low health, and was able to kill Scizor. Now, from some of our prep, I can tell you that Scizor would have been a really big problem for Florida had it been able to live and go on later on. So Lugia living, not only living, the first time around, the assurance, but also living on 5 from the bullet punch was massive, because that Scizor would have become a big problem. This match likely would have gone very differently. There's so many ways this match could have gone differently, but that was the first one in my opinion. whether if Lugia didn't live, not only would the Dynamax have been burned, Scizor would have stayed alive. So you might think he burned the Dynamax, but honestly, he needed that Scizor off the field. That was a great call from him. He just sacrificed the Dynamax. It's fine. It's fine, you know, because that Scizor again would have just been a really big problem later on. Max did reveal his Will-O-Wisp relatively early. However, when it comes to Rotoms, I know Lionheart expects a status move, especially considering his Zacian is fairly fast. So he was fully expecting a status move, which is exactly why he made this is just a championship caliber team. It's just championship caliber team building here. He brought Facade, fully expecting his Zacian to get status at one point or another. A fantastic haul that ultimately made a big difference. So he did bring Facade, which eventually, I'll get to that in a second. It comes into play later in the match. But like I said, there was a lot of back and forth. They traded blows quite a bit, because Togekiss went down, Scizor went down, Lugia went down to Hail, which is why, actually that's the talking point there when it comes to the score. Lugia died to Alolan Ninetales' Hail. In my opinion, no one should get credited with the kill. You know, that's just me, but Lugia does die, obviously, but no, in my opinion, no one should get credited with the kill. That's why I said 6-4. Otherwise, it would have been 6-5. But regardless, Lugia dies to the Hail after it kills Scizor, which is big. Whimsicott does go down to the Miltank, but then Miltank goes down to Zacian. Zacian did get 4 kills in this match, very close to getting the MVP. It was incredible. Well, actually, Mew still would have gotten MVP because of all the Pokemon that were alive, but still, Zacian getting 4 kills was big. It wasn't even like the kills were kind of, well, the Miltank kill was the only outlier. The rest of them did come in a group. But yeah, the Miltank going down was nice because you get rid of the extra Thunder Wave. And then Alolan Ninetales versus Zapdos was a good matchup, obviously, for Ninetales, with Zapdos being weak to ice. And then, what was it? Ninetales got killed by Gengar. Now, this was the interesting part of the match. So this is when the match started to wind down. When Gengar came in versus the Ninetales. This is the first time in the EBL we've seen Gigantamax Gengar. We're still missing a few forms because some of them just aren't that good. We've seen Gigantamax Meowth, which is crazy. But regardless, it's the first time we've seen Gigantamax Gengar, to my knowledge. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments down below. But the Gengar kills Ninetales, finishes it off. And then Barraskewda comes in to do some damage. It was a great call by Lionheart to use Liquidation instead of Psychic Fangs, because Liquidation actually did more damage. So, I mean, whether that would have made a big difference later on or not, who knows? But yeah, that was a good call from him. We did the Calix, Liquidation in the Rain, Stab as well. Would have done more damage in the Psychic Fangs, which it did end up leaving the Gengar on very low health. So that way the Zacian could come in and finish off the Gengar before its Dynamax can even end. So Zacian comes in, kills Gengar. Now at this point, I believe, yes, at this point Zacian is the only Pokemon left. So tell me if you heard this before. Zacian pulled off a 1v3, kills the Gengar. Then Rotom Heat comes out against Zacian. Now here is the fun part of this this show here. We can speculate nonstop about what would have happened. We were talking, Lionheart and I were talking about this match last night because I had to, you know, watch the match to get my memory going with this. In my opinion, in both of our opinions pretty much, with Zacian killing Gengar with Wild Charge, Gengar's Curse Body activated, got rid of Wild Charge for the Zacian. I personally think the Kyogre should have come out first. I think Kyogre should have come out first, and it would have done, I think, more work against the Zacian, or at least would have set up the Rotom to where it could have maybe killed the Zacian eventually. But I think Kyogre definitely should have come out first, considering Zacian couldn't hit it as hard without the Wild Charge. Not to say it wouldn't have hit it hard regardless, but the Wild Charge would have likely one-shot the Kyogre or come very close to one-shotting the Kyogre. And Zacian also had a quick attack, so it could have finished off on that front. But I think honestly Kyogre should have come out first. But then Rotom Heat comes out instead of Kyogre. So Rotom Heat comes out. Max is able to land a Will-O-Wisp on the Zacian. As previously mentioned, though, the Zacian did have Facade, so the Facade was able to take out Rotom Heat. Now comes the final turn of the match. Zacian uses Facade on Kyogre, and it crits and kills the Kyogre. Now, my immediate reaction, Lionheart's immediate reaction, Max's immediate reaction, I think everyone's immediate reaction was that crit mattered big time. Now, according to the calculations, there's a few things. According to the calculations, first of all, if Max never burned Zacian, Zacian likely would not have been able to kill Kyogre in the end. So the burn actually mattered. Zacian would have died eventually if he was never burned. So that's an interesting talking point. Again, it didn't have wild charge, so that's less damage it's able to deal with Kyogre. And even without the wild charge, even then, I mean, likely, I think Thunder Wave, halting the Zacian, outspeeding it, likely would have led to a victory more so than the burn, or just straight up attacking the Zacian. Also, maybe would have led to something more. With the Calx though, a Kyogre Scald Under the Rain would have been a 2-hit KO regardless, because the Kyogre was not built into special attack according to Max, unless, and this is where I say the crit didn't really matter for Zacian, the crit would have mattered for Kyogre. A crit Scald Under the Rain would have killed Zacian, but regardless, Zacian was going to take the hit. Even if a Facade was always going to be a 2-hit KO, even if it didn't crit, it was going to do over 50% damage, and then it would have finished it off at that point. So the crit did not really matter, because ultimately Zacian would have taken the hit, turned around, and killed the Kyogre again, unless the Kyogre critted a Scald, and then it would have killed Zacian. Then it would have won the match. But I think ultimately the best play would have been I personally don't think Max misplayed his Dynamax. I think he did play it well. But I also think that Kyogre was the better candidate towards the end game. I think maybe Kyogre should have been the one to Dynamax, and Kyogre should have been the one to try and finish out the match. Being a giant whale, I think it should have been the one to finish the match. But also, Thunder Waving the Rotom. Ultimately, I mean, this is all hindsight stuff. This is all different scenarios. What could have happened when you're in the moment? You're not really thinking about all this extra stuff. So ultimately, he wants to lower the Zacian's attack. He didn't think about Facade. Lionheart did really well to not reveal Facade throughout the match. I get it. Zacian's, obviously with that attack boost, you want to lower its attack. That's great. However, Thunder Wave also limits it in terms of its speed. So yes, it could still hit you hard, but you're going to hit it first, pretty much no matter what, unless your Pokemon is really slow. So I think ultimately the Thunder Wave would have been the better play, because he would have been at least able to get a hit with Rotom, I believe. He would have been able to get hit with Rotom and then turn around, and Rotom likely still would have gone down, but then Kyogre would have outsped it and killed it anyways. So ultimately, there's a couple things that could have changed the outcome of this match, but that crit Facade on Kyogre didn't matter, because ultimately Zacian was going to two-shot it no matter what. It was going to take a hit and it was going to two-shot. What would have mattered is if Kyogre critted the Zacian. So it's a crazy match. So many, so many ways this match could have gone differently. I've talked about it literally for 10 minutes. It's probably the longest I've talked about a match, because there were so many ways this match could have gone differently. Whether Florida would have suffered a bigger loss, or at least would have suffered a loss at that last turn, or whether Florida would have had a bigger win. There's just so many ways this match could have gone differently. It's crazy. I think these two did incredibly well to prep for each other, and brought pretty much all the right stuff. Facade was just the best call from Lionheart, because he knew, I mean, Zacian getting status, it's not that surprising. It's going to happen that you're going to get chased in a match if you have Zacian, and ultimately Florida was able to walk away with the win and secure their spot in the finals for their chance to get their third trophy, for his chance, I guess. Not really Florida for Alligators, that was my jargon, but Florida for Alligators to get their first trophy. Chance for Lionheart to get his third, which is insane. So yeah, that's that match. This one was a lot more complicated than our next match, which is the Essex Espeons versus the Texas Tyranitar. The Essex Espeons swept the Texas Tyranitar 5-0 to secure their back-to-back spot in the championship for season 4 here. Mew walked away with the MVP. It racked up 5 kills. I feel really bad for Texas because they got swept by both Mew and Mewtwo. That wasn't great for them. Now, first turn, Essex actually led with Dubwool. started to Swords Dance, and I did not realize that Double got Baton Pass. So that was an amazing call from Pitch to just go for it. Double's a tanky Pokemon. A lot of Pokemon on Texas team are pretty bulky, pretty physical. And he's been leading more physical Pokemon lately. I think I could be wrong on that. But regardless, the Swords Dance Baton Pass was huge. Double Swords Dance twice, and Baton Pass into Mew. Mew was built physically, and Mew was able to rack up 5 kills. Getting the Trick Room off with Claydol was good. To stall was good to stall the Mew a little bit, or stall the Baton Pass and the setup and all that. Just good to stall it a little bit, but ultimately it was stalled out. It was funny because Pidge didn't even know when Trick Room ended. He kept asking over and over. But regardless, Claydol did explode, so that's why I'm not crediting the kill to Essex. Again, it's a talking point that's I'm never gonna win. But Claydol exploded, nearly killed the Double, not enough though. Ultimately, hindsight, a fighting type move on a Pokemon to go against Double would have been great, or something, or maybe predicting that he was gonna Baton Pass into Mew. Again, I don't think many people even knew Double got Baton Pass. I didn't know Double got Baton Pass, so it was just a great call from Pidge. But yeah, the Double switches into the Mew, and Mew just goes crazy. Mew, it was a great call from Pidge to max Airstream the Aggron. You break the Sturdy, you get the speed boost. That's a fantastic call. And then he proceeded to just wreck shop. He killed the Aggron. I think Jirachi maybe having a ghost type move could have been really helpful, or something along those lines. Could have been really helpful. Hindsight, again, not really. I don't think he was expecting Mew to be the one to sweep him. But yeah, Jirachi did manage to take a hit while Dynamax, but you know, it got 2 shots, so it didn't really matter. And then Sceptile came in and died, Rayquaza came in and died, and Walrein came in and died. So it was a pretty ugly match. It was really hard to come back after that setup. It is always very difficult to come back when your opponent is setting up in front of you. Is it possible? Yes. Is it near impossible? Also, yes. So unfortunate for Texas. They did really well against Yeltnib, against Indiana, but ultimately their luck just ran out, and the regular season kind of caught up to them. But Alan, I really liked your improvements. I really did. I think you did improve as the season went on. Started to realize some of the mistakes you were making, and that's really it. That's really all it is, learning from your mistakes and getting better in that sense. But Mew racking up 5 kills and carrying Essex through these playoffs, man. They got was it 5 kills in the last one as well, currently 10-0. So there's a chance with if Essex wins, that Mew can be on the logo again, which we might have to talk about that, because I don't know, that's kind of weird. But regardless, yeah, Essex swept up Texas to secure their spot in an emphatic fashion, and Essex in the playoffs so far have been nuts. 11-2 score, just wrecking shop. Mew racked up 10 out of 11 of their kills. I mean, this has just been a ridiculous run from Essex in the playoffs. Not to mention their week 4 rather, was also dominant. It was a 6-2 win. So ever since their last loss in week 3, they have turned this around. Ever since they faced Indiana, I guess maybe that was what they needed, kind of a wake-up call to turn around. And now they're 3 matches in a row and have just done they just dominated their opponents nonstop. Granted, they've faced the same opponent back-to-back, so it's a little easier to understand your opponent, but it is also difficult to have a rematch because usually the loser has the advantage. So I think Pidge has done incredibly well to turn his season around, and just flip it on the offensive end. I mean, even these Pokemon that we thought would be a little more defensive, they're playing roles that feed into the offensive Pokemon. So Pidge has done incredibly well to flip the switch, and he's looking like a very scary opponent for Florida, as Essex secured their back-to-back spot in the championship match. So those are the 2 matches. Florida walked away with a win over Detroit, and Essex walked away with a win over Texas. Pretty intense match on the Mega side. A pretty not so intense match on the other side. We did say, I mean, I've been saying it, the Mega Conference was definitely more competitive than the Dynamax Conference. So it's not that surprising that it shook out that way. But Essex and Indiana were the two heavy favorites, so it was expected that one of them was going to be back here. I really wish, sorry Texas, but I do wish we got to see Essex versus Indiana without the hurricane misses. I think it would have been great to see that match again. But regardless, we got to see two champs go at it in the finals. Prediction time. The championship match, Essex Espions versus Florida for Alligators. Oh, it's a tough one to call. Essex, I believe, is the number 3 seed in the Dynamax conference. So they ended the season as a number 3 seed. Yes, and Florida are coming into this as a number 5 seed. Again, they're on the lower end. I believe the lowest seed coming into the playoffs overall as well. But you cannot count out Lionheart. His team is not bad. His core legendaries are great. His core team is fantastic. Even then, like, even the outliers have still stepped up at one point or another this season. In particular, Ninetales, I think, has been a big help for Lionheart. I think Ninetales has been a big Pokemon for his team. Wouldn't have really called it earlier in the season or even preseason, but Ninetales has become kind of a bigger Pokemon for his team than maybe he was expecting. Not really sure. But regardless, this is going to be a really good matchup. I think this is going to be a championship match. Like, this is going to be a championship match, possibly the best. It has big shoes to fill, because Season 2's championship match is still my favorite, and I personally think it's still the best by miles. So I think this one has a chance to fill those shoes. I kind of wish Florida had a better team to make this even more exciting, but regardless, again, Florida's team is not even that bad. So there's a lot of going into this match. Florida have a chance, Lionheart specifically has a chance to get his 3rd trophy. Essex has a chance to match what Miami did in seasons 1 and 2 and get their back-to-back trophies. We're becoming a farmers league. I don't like this. So Essex versus Florida. I think experience is gonna reign supreme. As much as Essex has come into this playoffs from week 4 into now, just exploded and become one of the most explosive teams in the league. I'm gonna rock experience. I think what Lionheart has done this season, at every turn, he just makes the right play. He makes the right calls. He brings the right moves. Facade. He brings the right moves to turn his matches around. A little bit of luck involved in terms of his opponent in the semifinals not making the right decisions, but at the same time, in the moment, it was a good decision for Max to try and burn the Zacian. He didn't know he had Facade. And Lionheart, and that plays into Lionheart's favor as well. He knows how to hide his moves. He knows how to hide his strategies. He knows timing so well. He's just an amazing battler and just deserves all the credit. That being said, Pidge has exploded. I'm not gonna lie, his first championship win, take this as you want, I didn't think it was the most impressive run in the world, especially with the championship match last season wasn't great. I didn't think it was the most impressive run in the world, I'm gonna be honest, but this season he's definitely turned it around. He stepped it up a notch. He's clearly got more confidence to him, and I really like seeing that. So I do not think this match is going to be a blowout. If it is, I'll be really disappointed. I think this is going to be one of the closest matches we've seen all season. I think we're going to see a chess match. I think it's going to be super tactical. I'm fully expecting these two to bring everything they got, all the tricks, just everything. I hope there's no cheese though, no cheese, and there's minimized business or anything like that. Sorry, Bob. Got to reference it one last time. None of that cheese business, but I think there's going to be tricks up their sleeves, and they're going to be just going at it. I think these two are just genuinely going to go at it. I don't think Pidge is going to be afraid of Lionheart, so that's going to play in his favor. He's not going to be afraid of the moment either, like last season, because both him and Bob were afraid to lose pretty much, so that's why they played around each other and just refused to actually make a move. They just played afraid. But I think in this match, we're going to see them go at each other, and it's going to be super freaking exciting. But I am going to rock Florida for Alligators. I've been helping him all season. He's been helping me too. So I got to go with him. But I'm rooting for just a really good match, to be honest. So I'm rocking Florida. Let me know your predictions for the championship match down below. What did you think of these semifinal matches? Were they what you expected? Did you expect these two to be here in the finals? Let me know down below. And yeah, while you're down there, check out all the other coaches in the description. I've said it earlier in the video. Lionheart Plays and Poke Page is where the championship match is going to be located. Watch both point of views because I'm sure it's going to be a great match. And also check out all the other coaches. Go subscribe to them. Check all their socials out. Go follow, subscribe where it's all necessary. And also subscribe to the EBL channel. It is greatly appreciated. Also check out the EBL Twitter down below as well. Follow and subscribe where it's necessary. It's all greatly appreciated. And of course, make sure to share social to your friends, family, everyone you know. Let the people know not Lonely Hermit. Let the people know the Elite Battle Leagues where it's at. We'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.